Hello, everybody. This is Tim again here with another video. This time for Spider-Man: No Way Home. Yes, I finally saw this. It's been out for a while. I'll just go ahead and say it. I love this film. It's not flawless. It's not perfect, but this is my favorite Spider-Man film as of now. I mean, it isn't the best written of the Spider-Man films, but it makes up for it just in pure fun. Um, like this isn't as well written as Spider-Man: Far From Home, I don't think, or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's not. But it's just the most fun one of all of them. So yeah, for me, this would easily be number one of the Spider-Man films for me now. That doesn't mean it can't be topped in the future, but for right now, this is number one, just because of the pure fun of it. It was just an exhilarating, fun watch. Yeah, so easily 4 out of 4. There are some problems here. This movie's been out for a while. Most people know what happens in the flick by now. At the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio revealed who Spider-Man's true identity is as Peter Parker. We get to see how he interacts with everybody knowing he's Peter Parker. They build like a shrine to him at the school, and everybody tells him he can like climb on walls and shit and everything. Talks about how he can do it. It's pretty funny. And you got the Flash character, who I never really liked in the other two because he doesn't really feel like the Flash from the comics enough, and he's just kind of a weird nerd bully. And this one though, he is kind of fun here. He's only in it for like a few minutes, but he is kind of fun here when he's here. He's like wrote a whole book about how he's Spider-Man's best friend. It's called Flashpoint, and he's like he loves Peter Parker. That was pretty funny. Yeah, and so pretty much, Spider-Man wants to you get Doctor Strange to do a spell to make everybody forget his identity was revealed, but he messes up the spell because he starts naming off people he doesn't want to forget who he is, like Aunt May, Mary Jane, mm, or MJ, I guess, since her name's Michelle, and Ned, pretty much, and Happy. And it is kind of silly how he keeps like throwing names out there, even though Doctor Strange tells him you have to be quiet, you're messing up the spell. On one hand, he is a kid, but at the same time, Doctor Strange tells him deliberately over and over, "You're screwing this up," and it is kind of stupid of the character to do that. And another thing is like Spider-Man wants to like jump to doing this spell just because his friends can't like get into college. That's a little much. That's not really a good enough reason to do it. They needed something a little more than that. That is kind of just an excuse to get this plot going. But once like all the other villains and stuff from the alternate universes like show up, it is really fun. One thing I will say is don't go into this like expecting Spider-Verse the movie. It's really not. This really is just the Homecoming like third movie in the trilogy. Really, Spider-Man No Way Home is really just the third movie in the trilogy and the most epic of them all. This is like an Avengers like Endgame level epic movie. Really, by the end, um, or Infinity War. But yeah, all the villains like show up because the spell pretty much messes up, and everybody who knows Peter Parker like gets teleported there. Which there's maybe a little bit of plot holes here with this whole magic thing. There always is kind of with magic, like because did Electro really even know that Spider-Man was Peter Parker? I don't really remember if he did. Another thing is when Electro shows up, he's blue for just a few seconds, and then he gets hit by all this electricity or whatever, and it causes him to like metamorphosis into his regular human-looking self, and he gets more of a traditional Electro costume from the comics. I'll say this: some people had a problem with the blue look in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think it's based off the Ultimate Comics. Never bothered me. I thought he looked good. Like when he turns into regular Electro here for most of the movie, he still looks good. He looks fine. Jamie Foxx looks fine, but I never thought he looked bad as the blue version. That was never the problem with that character. That look was not the problem. It was just the writing. That he is better written here. Jamie Foxx does a good job ultimately in the movie. And you got the Lizard here as well. The Lizard is more of a background character. So is Sandman, but Sandman gets a little bit more to do than the Lizard. But it makes sense for those characters because you want to focus on more of the more powerful ones and the more recognizable ones, especially in the actor department as well. In these days, like Jamie Foxx, William Dafoe is the Green Goblin, and Dr. Otto Octavius, who is a big character in Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. And you get this really cool fight on the bridge with Tom Holland versus Doc Ock, which is a really cool fight. And he like takes Spider-Man's technology from his Iron Spider suit and upgrades like his arms to nanotech. That was pretty cool. But Doctor Strange shows up, man, just to like help capture all the villains, and Green Goblin like just has his memories back. He's turned back to like Norman Osborn or whatever, and he busts his goblin mask they had in the Spider-Man movies, which a lot of people didn't complain about that outfit. I never had a problem with it, maybe because I grew up with that movie, but I thought it was fine. But William Dafoe like goes into Aunt May's place like trying to find Spider-Man for help because his like face is out there on the building, and she calls in Peter Parker, and she's like, "I think I found one of the guys you're looking for," and he shows up there, and he like Green Goblin is like stealing donuts, which is pretty funny, or Norman Osborn is, and he's like the most gentle of all of them, which is pretty funny because when he turns back into the Green Goblin, he's the most psychotic of all of them. And they take him in, and this is when you get the big twist. Here is Spider-Man Tom Holland wants to cure the villains before sending them back because they're all going to die, and he has sympathy for them because he sees how human their nature is, like after he sees how Green Goblin acts when he's back to Norman Osborn. So he sees that they're human. He sees beyond like their monstrous, sides, and he wants to cure them, which is understandable. And it adds a new like twist with Tom Holland's character, because really they could have just treated this as a traditional like Sinister Six movie, and it's really not a Sinister Six movie. Don't go in expecting that, because that's really not what it is. That might disappoint some people too, but that's not what this is. But yeah, so he wants to cure them all and then send them back because they're going to go back to the moment of their death. But characters like the Lizard didn't die, and neither did Sandman. But Sandman knows that, but the Lizard, he seems to not know that he didn't die. So he actually asks like Max, the Electro's character, like, "Did I die?" Which was this is kind of sad. You start to feel a little bit of sympathy for the villains, because most of these villains, they are just crazy. They're not really evil for evil's sake. Only like the Venom character was in Spider-Man 3, and that Tobey Maguire one was really the only one that was really evil for evil's sake. All the rest of these guys are just kind of crazy. They just need mental help and help with cures. So he turns on Doctor Strange. He just wants to send everyone back and let them die. And so he takes the magic cube device that's going to do it, and he takes off flying. He takes off running with it, and then you get a big, cool, epic fight with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. This is probably like the best fight of the MCU so far, with all this cool, badass magic stuff, with like going to a mirror dimension, and Doctor Strange is like causing trains and stuff to implode on Peter Parker or Spider-Man. And you get this one scene, though, it doesn't really make sense. Like, he knocks Spider-Man's soul out of his body, but then his body's like still moving, like trying to evade Doctor Strange. That doesn't really make sense. It's never like, I don't believe it's ever explained. That really makes no sense. But then they're like fighting in the mirror dimension, and he manages to web up Doctor Strange and escape back through the portal, which I'll say this, he does beat Doctor Strange eventually during this big epic fight, but at the same time, Doctor Strange wasn't really trying for lethal blows. I mean, if he really wanted to, he probably could have killed Spider-Man. But yeah, so he gets away, and then Doctor Strange is in prison there. And of course, by the end of the movie, Doctor Strange finally manages to come back. And you need to kind of limit Doctor Strange, because if he was around, he would eventually try to join Peter Parker, and he would have like too much help or whatever against the villains. Because you get the villain's story, and he's trying to cure them all. He takes them all to like his home, which is the only place he can really take them to. And Aunt May's there, and he's like talking about curing them all. And he cures Doc Ock first, who turns into a good guy now. And then the rest, he gets ready to cure the Goblin or whatever, and Norman Osborn transforms back into the Goblin and tries to pretty much kill everybody and blows the place up. And you get this really badass fight with William Dafoe and Tom Holland, where Tom Holland gets the shit beat out of him, and the Lizard like helps too, and he kind of beats the shit out of him too. And Green Goblin just demolishes him, and you get to the bottom level of the complex, and then Green Goblin blows up the place and kills Aunt May, which this was a surprising death. I don't think a lot of people probably saw this coming. Of course, now it's been spoiled everywhere. It's even on like YouTube. You can see the clip, but yeah, she gets killed. This is pretty much this Spider-Man's Uncle Ben version moment, which was really cool. I'm glad they put that in here. That really helps elevate this Spider-Man and age him up into adulthood for the next movie, which is gonna happen. Because this movie made a shitload. But yeah, Green Goblin gets away, and of course Tom Holland's having a heart attack. He talks about how he wants to kill the Green Goblin. And then you get the other Spider-Man who show up, and Andrew Garfield is great here. And I've heard some people say Tobey Maguire was just kind of good. I don't think so. It makes logical sense why he would be the way he is in the movie. He's kind of an older, slightly more mature version of his character. I thought he was great here as well. I thought he did totally fine. He's just kind of old, Tobey Maguire is, so he's not as young as the other two. So he's not gonna get to be as fun and as jovial as the other two Spider-Mans. It's not gonna work that way. So I thought he was totally fine. Maybe if some people expect like a big character arc or something for him in this movie or whatever, but that's the thing I'm trying to tell people. This is not Spider-Verse. This is just Tom Holland's third movie. He's still the star here. And then you get all three of the Spider-Man interacting. It's really fun, and they share their stories about how they lost their loved ones as well, like Uncle Ben and Gwen Stacy from Emma Stone from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is really cool. And they do a callback to that here too, where sorry about this. Sorry about that. I got light problems in this shitty vehicle. I just saw the movie. But yeah, they do callbacks to that too, where he saves Michelle or whatever, the new MJ for Tom Holland, which was pretty cool. Yeah, they're both great here. I liked Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield here. And yeah, you get to the main event, which takes place on the Statue of Liberty, and you got J.K. Simmons in here as another version of J. Jonah Jameson, which I thought was really funny. How he keeps talking about how shitty Spider-Man is, and when Spider-Man is talking about how he's on the Statue of Liberty, J. Jonah Jameson is like, he's going to destroy another national landmark, folks. You heard it here. That was pretty funny. And you get to the big epic battle at the end, and they manage to cure Jamie Foxx. He's like, I'm back to being a nobody, and Andrew Garfield goes over and he's like, you were never a nobody, Max. And he like tries to encourage him to give up being a villain or whatever. And then they cure the Lizard and they cure Sandman. One thing is with the Sandman character, when he shows up first, he's kind of helping Spider-Man because he wasn't really a bad guy. He was just kind of misguided. But then by the end, he's like going against Spider-Man because we're supposed to believe that he's so rage-filled. He just wants to get the cube and go home. But at the same time, they kind of wish-wash on his motivations a little bit here, but nothing too bad. But yeah, you get to the end and you get the Green Goblin fight again against Tom Holland. Tom Holland manages to like fly off on the Green Goblin, and it's a really great like action scene where he just like beats the shit out of him because he of course killed his aunt. And then Tobey Maguire shows up to stop him from impaling his glider back into him once again, like happened at the end of the original Spider-Man movie. And then he stabs Tobey Maguire in the back. William Dafoe does, and then they manage to. Andrew Garfield like throws a cure. Tom Holland grabs it and manages to cure the Green Goblin. So now he's back to just being Norman Osborn. They're all back to normal. They're doing the spell. They all go home. You get really like cute and fun scenes between Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, where Andrew Garfield's like popping his back or whatever because all the swinging like wears down on him. That was pretty cute. And they're holding Andrew Garfield is like holding Tobey Maguire, who's like, I bet you're in a lot of pain right now, immense amount of pain. And Tobey Maguire's like, yes, because he was stabbed. And then they get transported back to their universes, and so do all the villains. But in order to cast the spell or finish it, Doctor Strange has to erase everyone's memories of Peter Parker. So all his friends, Michelle, Ned, they're not going to know who the hell he is. Nobody is. Not even the Avengers team. It's kind of like almost a reset button on the Tom Holland version of Spider-Man here to probably move him out into adulthood, which is a pretty cool idea. And so the spell gets cast. Everybody forgets who he is. He goes into like the coffee shop or whatever, the diner to meet Michelle, and he decides not to tell her who he is. I guess most likely not to put her back in harm's way. And he sees Ned there. They kind of hint that maybe with Tom Holland out of the way, there might be a romance between the Ned character and the Michelle character now without Tom Holland, which could kind of lead to him becoming the Hobgoblin when Tom Holland shows back up and probably takes his girl back, and then Ned gets jealous and he transforms into a Hobgoblin and decides to kill Spider-Man. They could go that route if they want to in like the 4th or 5th movie. They could. I think they'll let these two characters maybe set out for the 4th movie and introduce some new characters, probably Gwen Stacy or something like that. But yeah, you get to the end and he's like at Aunt May's tombstone, and Happy Hogan is there, and he's talking about like how you knew her, and he goes through Spider-Man, and it ends with him going into his apartment, and then he takes off swinging as Spider-Man. Really kind of a bittersweet ending, and I like that because if it doesn't take away from his loss and character arc and everything that they've done in this movie. And if you see my breath during this video, it's because it's cold as fuck where I'm at right now because I'm in my vehicle and it's really cold while I'm doing this. But yeah, all in all, 4 out of 4. Masterpiece of a movie of just pure fun. I loved it. I can't wait to own it. And I look forward to seeing the Morbius movie next month, which is another Spider-Man spinoff from Sony. They're on a roll here, them and Marvel, with these Spider-Man products. I haven't really hated any of them. Even the Venom movies, which are just kind of dumb fun, I've enjoyed. And the bonus scene after the credits is pretty much just Venom sitting in like a bar, and then he gets transported back to his world, and a piece of his black goo is left there. I guess maybe to have for him, it's either because they want to do their own version of Venom in the MCU for the next movie or the one after, or it's because Tom Hardy will have some kind of link to the MCU verse and he can travel back and forth because part of him's there. I don't know. It could go either way. Either way, though, it's a fun tag. So yeah, all in all, 4 out of 4. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. It's not flawless in the story department, but it's a good enough story, and it makes up for it for just the pure fun of the movie. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again.